Alright, let's talk about the tools that you will need and will not need to trim your own horse's hooves. There's two main ways that you can do it. One is using files and doing it by hand with nothing electric. And this will come with a little bit of skill. Let's fly. And then there's the electric way. Now this way is going to seem a little bit like, I don't think I could do that. It's not very common. I don't know enough about this. I'm gonna show this way because if you learn how to do it with an electrical grinder, you will be amazed at how easy it is to do. Matter of fact, I can, what, you getting tired? I can do a whole horse trim in 3-4 minutes. I mean, 3-4 minutes, 5 or 6 if they're really in bad shape. I can do it really fast. I don't have to lean over my sore back. It's just so much easier. So I'll go through that. So let's start with what you don't need necessarily. Here's some chaps. Because you're not putting nails in, you're not worried about that going into your leg. Now if you want to keep your pants clean, you can get chaps, and these are cheapy eBay chaps. You can get these, but they're not necessary if you're on a budget. Here's a couple of different kinds of hoof knives. They're used to cut the frog or trim parts of the sole, and I'm going to tell you that I don't believe that you should do that. You shouldn't touch the frog, with rare exception. Shouldn't touch the bars, shouldn't touch the sole. You want that to grow up thick and strong. So you don't need these. It takes skill to use these anyways, skill that you're probably not going to want to get. Don't worry about it. Buddy? By the way, when you're training your horse, you know, my guy's been standing here a little bit. We've shot a couple of videos. Notice how he's putting his nose on things. That's a good training thing that you're going to want to do. If he's never seen one of these things, they might get a little bit nervous. And this is not a rental horse here. This is, you know, or a dead broke quarter horse. This is a high-strung Egyptian Arabian horse, and I love this guy. And he cooperates just fine. So if I can teach my horse, you can teach your horse. Okay, instead, you may want a pair of scissors. For the rare time we're going to open up the central sulcus a little bit on the frog. Not going to use it much, but if you want a pair of scissors, get that. You're for sure going to need a good hoof pick. I like the one that has a brush on it so I can clean it off, but just your standard hoof pick. No matter which method you decide to do, all by hand or using the grinder, you're going to want to have a pair of nippers. Nippers are like fingernail clippers. You're going to take the big chunks off and you're going to refine the trim using either your files or using your grinder. So this is a must-have. They're not that hard to learn to use. I'm going to show you how to use them. I don't think it's real important. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. The better the quality, the better the metal, the sharper, of course, is going to be a little bit better. But if you're on a budget, you could probably eBay these and get away with it. Regardless of whether you do the by hand or use the electric device, you're going to want to have some good files. It's easy just to hit it every once in a while. Maybe you're about to put a boot on, if you decide to do that, which we'll talk more about, or you just want to clean it up a little bit. Having a file is handy. Now this is one area you can't go cheap. This is a junky Tractor Supply one. It's got a little rust on it. If you go buy a cheap file, what will happen is you'll go to use it and it'll stick like glue, like Velcro on Velcro. It just won't, because they're not sharp. They're not made with good quality metal. They're not sharp. You don't want to do that. You want to buy some good files. It's not going to be, they're twice as expensive. It's not extremely expensive to get files, you know, 20 to 50 bucks depending on really how good you're going to get, where Tractor Supply might be 10 bucks. But this one's going to frustrate you and you're not going to have the longevity in it. Anyways, these will last a long time if you trim the way that I'm going to show you. Now I have these are from Italy. I think I got them on either eBay or Amazon. the fair supply places will sell them. This is Bassoli, B-A-S-S-O-L-I. I don't know that these are better than other good quality files out there. If you're not sure, just buy a little bit more expensive one. But when you buy a file, you're going to want a couple of different teeth on it. This one, I don't know if you can see, is very fine teeth. And that's kind of nice if I'm doing a little less work. It pushes right through the hoof wall a lot easier. And then this one has thicker teeth. It takes bigger bites out of it. You want one of those. And this one here, on the back of it, by the way, is just kind of a little file just for cleaning it up a little bit. It won't take much off, but that's nice to have. And this third one has big teeth on one side and small teeth on the other. This is probably the one I use the most. If I have to take off a little bit more, I'll use the bigger teeth, and then I'll, just to refine it or put a round on it, I'll just flip it over and do that. Definitely need to get good quality files. Okay, another thing you're going to need is gloves, regardless of which system you use. Because if you rake across your hands, and I've cheated it before, just I don't feel like a hurry, and then got it. So you want, you're gonna need 2 gloves if you do a file, probably only 1 glove if you do the electric. All right, you're also going to need to have a hoof stand. Now there's a couple different kinds out there. You can spend a lot of money on a hoof stand. This is a basic plastic one called Hoof It Equine, made in the USA. This, again, this is an eBay thing. Here's what I like about it. It's got this to hold the hoof, and it's got this part to stick up to set the hoof on. Some, you have to take this part off, put the hammock part down in, and then take it off, and then put the little ball part sticking up. Each of those are probably better, actually, but it's just one more thing to have to do. We're not shoeing, the horse is not going to have his foot in there for that long. It's just easier to just turn it for the different applications that I'm going to use. You will notice this was hard plastic. It didn't seem to be quite as comfortable for the horse as I thought would be nice. So I took a little bit of foam and then wrapped tape around it just to be a little bit softer. You can decide if you want to do that or not. Okay, now let's go to my favorite. This is my favorite, again, because it's so much faster, so much less labor intense. Do you have to train the horse? Yeah, you do, but most likely you're training them to be desensitized to bags and little ropes and everything like that, and this is no different. If you take your time, if you were to decide, oh, okay, I want to do this right, and I've got to trim my horse's feet right now because I'm going somewhere, and you haven't ever got this out, you're probably going to be a little discouraged. I mean, the last thing you'd want to do is pick up your horse's hoof, never having heard this, and he's like, what is that? So you want to take your time, do it like you would desensitize anything else. Let him hear the noise. I would during feeding time run this a few times and let him get used to the noise. Now, you can get a battery operated one. I happen to get a big battery so it lasts a while. So I usually keep one battery on the charger and then use this big battery. This one's going to be a little more expensive. I don't know what I paid for it, 100, 150 bucks, something like that. This is a Makita. I like this one. You don't have to. You could go to Harbor Freight and get a corded one. Again, you're going to have to teach your horse to be used to cords and whatnot, and it's not quite as convenient, but I bet you could get one of these at Harbor Freight or Tractor Supply for 20 bucks. Now if you did, this is one I use for metal grinding, so I have a metal grinding tip on there or pad on there. You would want to unscrew this, and then you want this guard off of it. The guard will get in your way. You want just to have the sanding disc. Now, there's a couple different ways you could go with the sanding disc. You could go with this floppy disc that's you can use. You attach it on there. I don't like it. They don't lay flat. They're not as good. This is what's called a flap disc. It's multiple layers. I like this. I think it's going to last the longest. You've got like stick-on kind. This will be absolutely completely worthless to use. So get one of these. Now, What grit should you use if you're going to get this? Probably want to get like 80, maybe 100, 120. The higher the number, the less it's going to take off, the less rough it is. I use 40. I'm very comfortable with this, but if you didn't know what you're doing and you put a 40 on there, you could take off more than you anticipated. All right, if you use the grinder, you're going to want to have some safety glasses. You may, he says, hey, why am I standing here so long? You don't want to breathe it, so either you can put a bandana. I got tired of the mask on my face. I just kind of have it already set up, so I walk my horse up. There's a little fan there. When I get to it, you'll see it, and it just blows all the dust away from me, keeps me cool, keeps the dust out of my eyes and nose and his too. So that's a good way. When you're learning how to do this, again, you're going to get your sanding disc. You'll appreciate, once you kind of get a little bit of experience, what grit you want to use. Again, I would start with maybe an 80 or 120, then move down to a 60. I have a 40 here. I mean, I can buzz right through it, but I'm very comfortable doing it. You may not be. And so what I would have you do is get a board and get this and practice a little bit just to get an idea. The board is going to be kind of similar to most horse hoof walls. And so once you kind of get used to how much it takes off and how long, if it feels like it took it off too fast, then, and I would buy a few of these, put on a higher grit, put on 120 rather than 100 or 80 and go. And then once it feels like that's too slow, then you can go to a lower grit. In the next part 3, I'm actually going to be going through trimming some horses. I'm going to go up to a friend of mine's and do a few of his horses, and a very rare horse breed. Should be fun. If this was painfully slow, I'm sorry, and if it was too fast, not to worry. You'll get it when I start trimming some horses. I'm going to do a couple horses up there, and I'll go through the anatomy and the tool I'm going to use and why I'm going to do it, etc. I'm confident you're going to do this on your own, or maybe just find someone good that you really trust to do it, but it's really not very difficult. And sorry, by the way, my horse, I had to move out of the sun away from the hitching post, and so all I did was put his lead rope in the window, and he figured it out after a little bit of filming and kept looking over my way. I probably should have moved him to be less distracting, but he's my buddy, and I sure do appreciate him. Thank you for watching.